The bold and the beautiful spoilers for Tuesday, August 5th, suggest that Hope Logan and Liam Spencer's memories will flood back as Ridge Forrester witnesses Brooke Logan's waterfall. For starters, Nick Marone will ramp up the romance and try to persuade Brooke that she is better off without Ridge. Nick will try to impress Brooke and set a romantic mood on this boat ride as he prepares to propose marriage. However, things will go wrong for a variety of reasons, beginning with the fact that Nick has just received his troubled boat. Given the boat's history of problems, there's a fair probability it's not as well repaired as Nick has been informed. Plus, when Nick sees Ridge in the distance, safety will not be his top priority. Ridge will begin calling out to Brooke from the docks, so Nick will accelerate and make some sharp turns in the process. This ride will take a disastrous turn when Brooke falls off the back of the boat and crashes into the water with a huge splash. Ridge will be shocked and will soon find himself in rescue mode. Back in Los Angeles, Hope will attend to Liam at the Spencer estate, where memories will flood back. Now that Liam and Hope know he's going to live, it may rekindle old feelings and leave them with some what-ifs. On Tuesday's B&B episode, John Finnegan will make some accusations against Grace Buckingham. Finn will back Grace into a corner after sharing all of his suspicions and evidence. Grace hoped to get away with faking Liam's brain tumor and the $1 million miracle that Bill Spencer had paid for. However, Finn's refusal to let this go will make it clear that the jig is up. Grace will undoubtedly feel panic rising as Finn presses her for the full truth. After Finn accuses Grace of operating a fraud, she'll blurt out a confession by midweek. Grace is about to reveal some distressing news, so Finn will get updates on her side of the tale in future episodes. According to the bold and the beautiful spoilers, Grace will have to explain herself, but Finn will not be pleased with her excuses. Hope stood near the cabin's ancient porch swing, the breeze rustling strands of her hair as she gazed out over the rolling hills of the Forrester estate. Something in the air felt different, charged and nostalgic, as if the breeze carried whispers from the past. She tightened her grip on the edge of her cardigan, bracing herself not for the cold, but for the wave of emotion that was swirling inside her chest. She hadn't expected this visit to the cabin to evoke so many emotions, but as soon as she went inside earlier, the fragrance of pine, subtle flowery perfume, and the soft creak of the wood beneath her boots transported her to another time, one when she and Liam had dared to dream of forever. Liam was only a few feet behind her, his hands stuffed into his coat pockets, his gaze vacant as if he too was falling back into those bittersweet memories. He paused alongside her, staring out at the landscape that had witnessed their love, sadness, and all in between. "It's strange," he finally admitted, his voice low. "Being here again." Hope nodded slowly. "It is." The stillness between them was not unpleasant. It was rich with the ghosts of shared laughter and quiet weeping. They didn't have to speak to relive it. They could both recall the evenings spent huddled up under blankets, the whispered promises, and the conflicts that felt earth-shattering at the time but now looked like echoes of teenage uncertainty. Hope looked at Liam out of the corner of her eye, her heart aching, not because she wanted to regain the past, but because she hadn't realized how vivid it remained. However, the past no longer belonged only to them. A lot had changed. They'd changed. However, this did not mean that the memories had dissipated. In fact, standing here now, it felt as if time was folding in on itself. Hope turned to face him, examining the profile she had known for so long, the slope of his brow, the way his mouth curled downward when he was deep in thought. "Do you remember that night we got caught in the rain?" she murmured quietly, a timid smile tugging at her lips. Liam's gaze shifted toward her, and a smile began to form. "You mean the one where we were supposed to be fixing the roof, and instead we danced in the middle of the storm like lunatics?" She laughed, the sound airy and genuine, and her eyes sparkled briefly. "That's the one." He too laughed louder and more freely. "God, I haven't thought about that in forever." But now they were both present, and the memory was so vivid that it could have happened yesterday. The rain had saturated them, and they had clung to each other, spinning and laughing, unconcerned about the outside world. It was not lost on any of them how valuable that moment had been, and how rare those times appeared now. Real life had returned, as it often does, bringing challenges, responsibilities, and new people. Hope's thoughts turned to Thomas, and the meandering, intricate route that had led her to trust him again. She couldn't dispute that Thomas had been supportive recently, and had developed in ways she never believed possible. But standing here with Liam, revisiting the emotional imprint of their love story, she couldn't help but wonder what would have occurred if things had turned out differently. Liam seems to be thinking something similar. "We were really happy here," he said finally. "Weren't we?" Hope gulped against the lump in her throat. "Yes, we were." But she knew that happiness was not always enough. They had struggled to hold on to each other through storms that were more than just literal infidelity, mistrust, and sadness. And eventually, the cracks expanded until there was no more room to hold on. She wondered if he regretted it. She wondered whether she had. Ridge leaned on the banister of the second-floor balcony, sipping his coffee and admiring the groomed gardens. It was surprisingly tranquil today. His thoughts turned to Brooke, beautiful, irritating Brooke, and the current disagreement that had distanced them yet again. She had always been a whirlwind, unpredictable, and passionate to the point of bursting. He admired her for it but yet despised it at times. Her voice trembled the last time they spoke, not out of fear, but because she was determined. She had stated she wanted space to ponder and breathe. Ridge gave it to her reluctantly, but it gnawed at him. Just then, activity at the fringe of his vision piqued his interest. He noticed Brooke walking through the rear garden gate, her hair glistening in the sun, her steps quick. He assumed she had gone for a walk, possibly returning to the guest house. But as she walked across the uneven stone walkway, her foot was snagged on one of the slightly elevated edges. Everything happened in a mere second. Her misstep, flailing arms, and then the fall. Ridge's mug broke on the balcony floor as he raced. Hope and Liam heard the crash of ceramics, followed by Ridge's voice shouting, "Brooke!" Hope's heart clutched as she and Liam dashed into the garden, their previous moment crumbling under the pressure. They arrived seconds after Ridge, who was kneeling beside Brooke as she attempted to sit up, wincing in pain. "Don't move," Ridge urged, gently supporting her shoulders. "You could have hit your head." "I'm fine," Brooke insisted, despite her tight voice. "I just twisted something. My ankle, perhaps." Ridge did not budge. "We are phoning someone. You could have done more than that." Liam took out his phone and dialed for aid, while Hope dropped to her knees by her mother. "Are you sure, Mom? You fell hard." Brooke offered her a strained smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. I'm just embarrassed." Ridge hovered while paramedics arrived to check her injury, acting as a silent sentinel. Hope took a step back with Liam, watching as he moved Brooke's hair away from her face and her gaze lingered on his. Even in pain, their relationship became powerful, visceral, and unresolved. Hope felt an ache while watching them. It all seemed too familiar. Love in its most twisted state. Sometimes it's undeniable. Sometimes it's impossible. Ridge sat quietly beside Brooke's bed after she was taken inside and her ankle had been wrapped and iced. She was resting with her eyes closed, but not asleep. "You didn't have to stay," she remarked. Ridge exhaled. "Yeah, I did." There was a prolonged pause. "You scared me." Brooke opened her eyes slowly. "It wasn't that bad." He shot her a look. "It could have been. You were there for 1 second and then gone. Exactly like that." She averted her gaze to the ceiling. "That is life, Ridge. It can put you off balance sometimes." Ridge nodded slowly, his eyes on her. "Is that who we are? Off balance?" Brooke did not respond right away. "Maybe we always were," she finally said. "But we tried, didn't we?" His jaw clenched. "We did more than try." Her gaze met his. "I never stopped loving you." The air between them became thick with all the things left unsaid. Ridge reached out and took her hand in his. "Then why does it feel like we're always falling?" Brooke's voice hardly rose above a whisper. "Maybe we're just afraid to let go." Across the estate, Hope and Liam sat by the fire, the earlier magic tempered with the reality of everything they'd seen. She studied his face. "Did we let go too soon?" Liam sighed. "Or did we just stop believing we could hold on?" She shakes her head. "I don't know anymore." He leaned out and softly brushed her hand with his. "But I do know that moments like today, they stay with you." She nodded. "They do." And deep down they both knew that no matter what happened next, this moment, the memories flooding back, the closeness, the quiet weight of their shared history, would be another inscribed into the story that only the two of them could understand. When night fell, the cabin became quiet again, and the stars spread like salt across the dark velvet sky. Hope remained behind when Liam went, sitting alone on the swing. She imagined her mother inside, nursing a sprained ankle and possibly reuniting with the one man she had never quite been able to leave. She remembered Liam, their joy in the rain, and the ache she still felt when she thought about what they had lost. And she reflected on the future, which was unknown and unpromising, but still stretched out before her like an untraveled road. Not every memory has to be a hurt. Some may serve as touchstones, reminding her of how far she'd come, how much she'd survived, and how deeply she could feel. She rested her head on the swing's backrest, her eyes drooping closed. Somewhere inside her, love stirred, not for what was or could have been, but for herself, for the lady she was about to become, for the parts of her life that did not require perfection to be lovely. And far away in his own stillness, Liam sat in his car before driving away, carefully grasping the steering wheel. The past had resurfaced today, reminding him that no matter how far you flee, some memories never vanish. Some love never truly leaves you. And certain stories, no matter how complicated, will never be fully completed. Please let me know if you want a headline, scene breaks, or this in a downloadable format. The hours passed, yet sleep remained difficult. Brooke sat leaned against the pillows in the Forrester guest house, her broken ankle resting on a cushion, the medications dulling the anguish in her body but not the tumult in her emotions. Rich had gone quiet following their chat. He perched on the edge of the armchair across the room, deep in concentration, nursing the same untouched glass of water that he'd poured nearly an hour before. Although neither of them talked, the stillness was not empty. Years of disputes, reconciliations, promises, betrayals, and an unexplainable gravitational attraction kept them together. "Do you think we'll ever stop doing this?" Brooke asked softly, breaking the silence. Ridge looked up. "What, circling each other like this?" He gave a half-smile, exhausted but affectionate. "I do not know. Maybe it's just who we are." Brooke sighed. "Maybe. But I don't want to continue harming each other." Her voice cracked slightly, raw with truth. "I want peace, Ridge. I am tired." He nodded and rose gently to sit alongside her on the bed. His hand curled lightly around hers. "I want that too," he said. "But peace doesn't mean walking away if we still love each other." She turned to face him, her eyes hazy. "Then what does it mean?" "Maybe," Ridge replied gently, "it means learning how to hold each other without breaking what we're holding." Hope finally stood up from the swing at the cottage, her body stiff and her heart heavier than it had been when she first arrived. She closed the door behind her and rested against it for a while, soaking up the warmth of the small area. Everything about this place spoke of the past. Every corner has a memory engraved into it, like initials on tree bark. She proceeded carefully to the mantel above the fireplace, where antique photos remained in wooden frames. One of them showed her and Liam in happier times, arms around each other, smiling at something the camera hadn't captured. She leaned out and gently ran her fingers over the frame's edge. It was hilarious, she thought. Memory may both harm and heal in the same breath. How someone you formerly loved might still make your heart skip a beat, even though you knew they weren't the right person for you. Perhaps it was the harsh gift of time. It sharpened certain details while blurring others. She could still see Liam as a youngster, the man he had grown into, and the aspects of herself she had learned through loving and losing him. Hope knelt down by the fire again, bringing her knees to her chest. There was a calm resolution growing inside her. Not an answer, just a readiness. She had no idea what the future contained, whether it would bring her closer to Liam again or strengthen her friendship with Thomas. But she knew one thing. She was no longer going to make decisions based on guilt, fear, or nostalgia for the past. She would make a decision based on who she was today and what she deserved. For the first time in a long time I felt hopeful,